Okay, I came back and I checked the antenna coil here. I got a little bit more on the antenna coil than I thought I should. On the other 84 I got 3 ohms. This shows almost 23 ohms. So I don't know if that's a problem or not, but at least it's not open. And then where I got into my problem is I came down and I checked the oscillator coil from pin 1. Well, I'm going to show you on the schematic first. I got connected, or I checked the continuity from this point to ground, and it was good. I checked from this connection to ground and it's open, and this is identical problem we had on the basket case itself. So let me show you what I found on that. Let's see, I believe this is the one. On the first one, goes to here, and 3.5, and it should be 3.7 on the last one, 3.2 or so. Then over to this point here, should be somewhere around 2.5 or so, and it's open. So I've started disconnecting, labeling, and I'm going to pull this out, and we're going to have to see if we can fix this coil in here, just like in the basket case on the other video. So let me get this out. Got the coil out. I've scratched back some of the beeswax, trying to see if I can see anything. A lot of times you'll get some green discoloration around the edges. There may be some right there. That opens up the corrosion, which opens up the windings. That could be it there. But I'm going to have to unwind this and wind it again. You've already seen it. If you'll go back to the basket case, the Philco 84B, some of my other videos, I rewind the same coil there. So I'm not going to show this, I don't think. But let me work on this and we'll see what we can come up with. I heated the beeswax with a hair dryer and wiped it off with a paper towel. And as you can see, I found the broken wire. And like I described before, it starts to corrode and it eats the wire in two. So we're going to have to take this off and rewind it. Shouldn't be that big a deal. I'll probably wait till in the morning to do it. Alright, there's about 14 turns. It's wound clockwise, looking at it that way. And I took a little beeswax and melted it just to keep it in place and to seal the moisture out of it. So let's stick this thing back in there, and I also checked it, and it's right at a little over 2 ohms or so. So we'll see if it'll work. Got it put back in. So let's flip it over, check all the tubes, put them back in, and then bring it back up slowly on the variac. Alright, I've got it plugged in, got all the tubes in. I've got the meter on the plate of the output tube. So let's turn it on. Got it all the way down. So let's already got a little filament. I'm already at about 25 volts, and I should start seeing some DC. There we go. We get around 50 volts, it starts coming up. Less than 200 milliamps. It's going up to about 75. Everything's looking okay. It's going up to about 100. Should start settling back down. Got a little buzz going. Okay, we're up to about 120 volts or so. And we're back to about maybe we don't have an antenna. Maybe that's one of the reasons. I hear something now. All right, we've got sound. All right. Sure it needs an alignment, and we'll go on through it, and I'm going to check with Terry and see if he wants this thing back now. So I'm sure there's some other issues that needs to be looked at and double checked, but looks like we do have a operational radio now, and the current's about where it needs to be. Voltage a little bit lower than you would imagine, but it's okay. All right, I'm going to go through and check some of the voltages. The one on the oscillator, this tube here, it's supposed to be 233 on the plate, and that's from the cathode to the plate. And I'm sorry, it's supposed to be 240. I read 233. I think that's good. Then to the screen grid, it's supposed to be 95 volts. I measured 93 volts, which is good. Let's go to the second detector, which is pin 2 here. And the screen grid is pin 3, and the cathode is grounded, so I've got it connected to ground. And the only reason I'm showing you is some of the older guys, you can turn this part of it off or anything, but for the newer guys, this is why you check your components before, pretty much as just a routine, before you even power it up. But the plate on the second detector should be 70 volts. The screen grid should be 23 volts. Okay, so let's go to the screen grid, which is pin 3. Maybe you can see it over here. We're looking at 21 volts. Does everybody agree that's okay? That's okay. Let's go to the plate, which should be 70 volts, and we're reading 53 up 54, we'll call it 54 volts, which is much lower than it really needs to be. So what can be the problem? Well, if you go all the way back from, and you can follow it on the schematic, it gets the voltage from the B plus through this 250k ohm resistor and a 10K ohm resistor. So either one or both of those will cause the voltage to be, if it's bad. So when we go back here, this is the B plus, and you see it's 230. You go up to here, and it's down to 62, and then we go over to here, and it's 54. So I suspect one or both. Now you could have a leaky capacitor going from here to ground. That could be pulling some of the current and dropping the voltage also. Let's shut it off, bleed off the capacitors, and then we will check these individual components, and we'll see why the voltage. And that be the case, then we're going to change those out, then go back and check the voltage. Now this is for the newer guys. The older guys may say, okay, forget it, you know. But this is troubleshooting inside a radio and checking for voltages, not changing all the parts out at first or anything like that. So if you got one playing, you can go in and check and maybe find bad components that way. Let's check our resistors. I've turned off the power and unplugged it, and took a jumper and jumped out the electrolytics. There was enough power consumption that they were already drained down. So this is a 240,000 ohm resistor. Remember the old coloring system? Now we have the bands and everything like that. The older ones go by, and the way I remember it is bed, the body, the end, and the dot. You can see here's a good example of it. The body of this one is brown, the end is black, and the dot is orange. So this one is the 10K. Of course, this one's red, yellow, and yellow, so that's the 240K. So let's make sure you can see, and let's check the resistance of that. And we're setting at 290,000. That's what, 50,000. That's so we're going to change that one. That would and these resistors typically go up in value as they age. So let's just take this lead, flip it on over here. So we'll get a 240K or something close to it. Now here's another thought process. Let's say that was 270K, and the most, you know, if you're just the resistors you have out there right now in your box, that's a standard, is a 270K. So would you want to change it? It's up to you. But I happen to have a 238K, so we will change it. And here's the 10K. We'll go over here, and let's see. That's reading 18K. That's I think that's a little bit out of tolerance. So let's change these two out, and then we'll check our voltages and see if we solved anything. Okay. As you see, I have changed the resistors. The 240K, I think I put a 238 in there, and a 10K. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain here. This is something I'm going to demonstrate here shortly. By the way, this I am shooting with a new video camera and a new method, and I'm hoping not to lose quality, and I don't think it's going to be any better, but I'm hoping that it will be easier to get my videos downloaded. I've been having trouble going from one media to the other. So this is an experiment, and we'll see how that goes. All right. If you'll remember, the screen grid was 21, And now it's sitting right on 23, which that's where it's supposed to be. And the plate was at 54 and it's supposed to be 70. And as you can see now, it's sitting at 106. That's a little bit higher than we want, okay? So what are we going to do? And the reason I went ahead while I was here, I went ahead and rebuilt that block. I wanted to make this terminal permanent instead of just tacking it in. So I went ahead and rebuilt it and building from there. The screen grid is fed through this 1 meg resistor, which I measured it to be 1.8 meg. Right here is a 1 meg resistor. So let me stop this, power it off, swap into that and put a real 1 meg resistor on there, and let's check those voltages again. Okay, I've clipped in that new 1 meg resistor, and let's check the plate voltage here. Now we're back down to 53 volts. Let's look at the screen grid. We're up to 29 volts or so. So I guess the point, beside the one that's on my head that I'm making, is you can chase your tail and chase these voltages. Oh, well, I'll change this 1 meg resistor to get the screen voltage up to where I need it and get the plate voltage where. There's no need doing that until you get through all the components and make sure all the components are correct, because as you change these, they'll offset each other and make adjustments. So like I've said, this video, instead of going through and checking all this stuff all at once in the beginning, I've started at a different pattern, and this is totally different the way than I approach it. But I thought this would be a good example to show that not be really concerned right now. And the plate voltage is a little low, and I don't think that's a problem. It's playing, and let's get all the components changed out, and then we'll worry about the plate voltages. And by the way, I swapped back to the old method because I did not like that the video quality of that last section. Okay, I've reworked all the capacitors in here and even changed this 6K resistor on the bottom here. I've been experimenting with the screen grid bias to this tube, trying to get this up. This is a 1 meg, and as I was doing this, I kept noticing my voltages kept going up and down. So let me show you something. I'm going to try to do something. I've got another camera right down here, and notice this is the high voltage on the output tube, and it's been roughly close to 240. Now it's down to 204. So let's see if I can shoot some video here simultaneously. It's like chimps learning to use tools for the first time. All right, watch this magic. Watch this magic. Well, that's a little hot, so let me get something here. Did you see what's happening? don't know if I can sync the video or not, but that rectifier tube is loose in the socket. You can see as I wiggle it. So I'm going to have to go and tighten that up. While I was at it, I just pulled all the tubes, cleaned them up, and put them on the tube tester, and they all tested good. I took my pliers and I took and squeezed the plug or the tube socket on that 80 to tighten it up, and cleaned it out with a brush. Also, you can see that I've got my engineering degree here, my alligator clip. And I was experimenting with, I added 220K to make that a 1.2 meg to get this plate voltage closer to 70. So now I've got it around 68. I wasn't happy with the 50-ish. I've got the station tuned off. This is an odd distance station there. I didn't want to get into the talking. I didn't know if I'd get into the copyright police or not like that. There is a, let me see if I can show it to you. Right on the top of where it says 4 meg, on top of these IF coil, there's a modification that they recommend to make that a 2 meg resistor. And I haven't checked this coil, which I suspect it's good. I'll power it down and I'll check this coil before I pull it out. Now that's the reason I left this end off up here, is I'm going to change that to a 2 meg. But I want to show you something that kind of concerns me a little bit. As you can hear, watch when I get to the tube. Let me tune it closer to a station. All right, now watch when I get close. So, do I need that modification? Everybody recommends it. So, I think I'm going to go ahead and pull that antenna transformer out and check it out. If you'll remember, when we first started checking, it was a little bit high. Now I've rechecked it again, and it's come down into the numbers. About 3 ohms on each side. No, I'm sorry, it's about 5 to 6 ohms on each side, which sounds right. So it may have a loose connection or something in there. So anyway, I'm going to pull that antenna coil out and do that, change that from 4 meg to 2 meg. I've pulled the antenna coil out, number 2 here, and both these ends are connected to our ground here, and then this one goes up and goes to our grid cap up here, and also the tuner, same wire. You can see it connected here, and then the other one goes over to the center of the volume control, which is this one. So let's hook up to the ground, and we'll go to the grid cap first. Well, let's go to the tuner, one that's marked the tuner. We're getting around 6 ohms. The other end, it's the same wire, about 6 ohms. Now the other one is the one that goes to here. So let's go to here. If you'll remember, this one was reading a little bit high when I first checked it in the initial. And apparently it's opened up now. And I've got some video here of the green disease that's on it. So I'm going to have to rewind this one. Hopefully I can show you the green disease. As you can see right along in here. You can see the wire is green. And you come on around, there's another one right there. But you can really see it right there. And I've seen worse than this before. Okay, I've rewound the coil. As you can, if you'll remember, this one was reading about 6 ohms or so, and here's the new one, and it's roughly just under 3, 2.8. Since this was so tedious, I mean, we're talking almost human hair size, I'm going to describe how I did it. And I pretty much took the wire off. Let's move this stuff out. I took the wire off, as you can see, and I counted it. And actually I found the break, and it was about it was probably about that far down the line. I probably could have took a turn off and made it, but and reconnected it. It probably would work fine. But you know, we're talking old wire, and this stuff corrodes and liable to break somewhere else. So what I did is I stretched this out, and then I took some number 36 wire and I made it maybe an inch or two longer. And then what I do when I get my wire, I'm just going to demonstrate. Now you can take lacquer thinner, I think. You see the wire we're working with here? Okay. What I do is I take and hit everything, I guess, you know. So anyway, I take my soldering iron and I'll get a little bit of solder on the end of it like this, you can see, and then I'll just take and I'll run it down the wire like that, and you can see, if you can see it or not, but there's the enamel off this wire, and that's how I strip it. And then maybe you can see this. It's really hard to see, like I say. So anyway, that's how I do that. And then I take, and this coil is just like the other one. If you're looking at the bottom of it, it goes clockwise, and this one had about 19 turns on it. And as you can see, it came out from the ground and then started. There's usually some little tabs right here that you can loop under, but mine broke off. So what I did is I put a drop of beeswax right there to hold it in place until I got it really started, and then I wound it clockwise from the bottom, 19 turns, And then when I got to this point, to this wire, I came across, when I put it, I held it like that, and I put a drop of beeswax on it to hold it. And then I pushed it all together, and then I brought it through and sorted it, and then I just took some beeswax and covered it just to protect it. And so there we go. I'm going to put that back in, and hopefully we can get it fired back up. Okay, I've got the antenna coils back in there. I've got all the parts changed out except for the 4 meg. Change it to 2 meg. That Ron Ramirez modification. Have not done that. Don't know whether I'm going to do it or not. I went through an alignment quickly, and I've got it aligned, and all the voltage is pretty much on the money. So it's looking good. It's performing well. And we'll go through this. The low end of the band. Not quite sure where that's at. Of course, it's night time. It's about 9:30 at night, so we're getting a quite a few stations. It's a local station. It'll blast you out there. You have to pull the antenna off to listen to it. Basketball game. And that's pretty much it. So I'm not totally done with this. Not sure where we're going with this. I'm going to mount a fuse in it and probably change that resistor out on top, and then maybe start working on the cabinet. Do a little cleanup. Like I say, I didn't do this one like I'd been doing. This started out being a detective and then a repair from there. Rewound 2 of the coils, which was very interesting for me. But got a phone call a few minutes ago from Michael from That Tube Sound out in the Western Outpost out in Utah. Talked to him for several minutes and caught up and what have you. He's don't be surprised if he doesn't have a video coming out in the near future. When he hears this one, I'm going to put the pressure on him, I think. He told me he was going to. Just a matter of getting around to it. So I'm going to wrap this video up for tonight, and then give me your comments. Which direction do I need to go with this? Do I need to strip it down and clean the cabinet or the chassis real good like I always do, or just kind of wipe it down and go with this, and then repair the cabinet and call it good, or what? I'd be interested to hear your comments. So that'll be it for now. So from Larry from the hills of Tennessee, thanks for watching.